and salutations. Welcome back to Colin's Last Stand right here on YouTube. My name, as usual, is Colin Moriarty. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here with me today. I just got off the phone with my mom. Actually, my sister Allie and my best friend Ramon are both in LA visiting me this week. And my sister was talking to my mom, so I just talked to her via FaceTime right before I was recording this. And she's like, Colin, you look tired. So apparently I look tired. I'm really sorry about that. Also, I think I wore this shirt like 4 videos ago, but it's very comfortable. So please forgive me for that as well. Today, I want to cover a topic that a lot of people have been asking me to cover, which is what is going on down there in the South American country of Venezuela. Venezuela is really on the brink of becoming a failed state, a failed socialist state, and a lot of people are interested in it, but are kind of confused, in fact, about what's going on down there, what the nature of Venezuela is, what's going on with their government and their economy, what the ramifications of all these decisions over the last 20 or so years have been. And I feel like we're distracted. We're distracted by Trump. We're distracted by Brexit, we're distracted by whatever the case might be. And so Venezuela is getting kind of like ancillary playtime, and people are confused. And they said, Colin, can we have a primer on what's going on in Venezuela? And I said, of course you can. So welcome to the Colin's Last Stand primer on the Venezuelan crisis. I hope you learned something. I want to keep it brief. I want to keep it like 40,000 feet in the air so that we're seeing kind of an overarching kind of view of it. And by the way, as a white American man who can barely speak the language of English, my native language, I apologize for my pronunciation of Spanish words in here. I'm sure you'll get great humor out of that, as you usually do. I can barely speak French, which I took for 8 years, so I have no hope with Spanish. So I'm just letting you know I'm sorry about that. Let's start broad. Venezuela is a country on the very northern coast of the South American continent. It gained full independence from its founding Spanish colonial and imperial influence in the mid-19th century, and has been a country and a region largely in flux, with periods of great prosperity and periods of great destitution ever since. It's roughly the geographic size of California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona combined, and has a population north of 30 million today, making what's going on there of significant importance to those both inside of its borders and out. Another thing you have to understand about Venezuela in order to comprehend what's happening today is that it's flush with oil, like absolutely, positively flooded with it. Venezuela has proven oil reserves larger than even the world's great oil kingpin, Saudi Arabia, and its oil market has, for the past century, been at the nexus of Venezuela's varying periods of stability and volatility. Generally speaking, when global oil prices skyrocket, Venezuela does great. When oil prices on the global market plummet, Venezuela historically pays a sometimes significant price. But perhaps the most important thing to truly understand about Venezuela is that, since 1999, the country has been under the control of self-avowed socialists. I don't say that in an inherently pejorative sense either. I'm just presenting the facts. And unlike how people like to try to bend the definition of socialism to mean whatever it is they want it to mean, Venezuelan socialism is far closer to the real thing than nearly any other so-called socialist society. I say that as a point of honesty. True socialism doesn't exist anywhere in the world without at least some capitalist-slanted exceptions, and Venezuela is, of course, no exception to the rule, any more than the United States practices unbridled capitalism. But at its core, the US is capitalist, and at its core, Venezuela is socialist. Of course, it's also true that the more socialist a society becomes, the more likely it is to collapse, and that ultimately tells you all you need to know. As the Washington Examiner's Dan Hannan so aptly put it, quote, "The script never varies. We are supposedly witnessing a new dawn until the moment of collapse, at which point, overnight, we are told that it wasn't real socialism," end quote. Well, in the context of 20th and 21st century Earth, Venezuela is, in some significant ways, about as socialist as it gets. And it's this mathematical predictability of failure that makes this story so sad. As Hannan points out, the same arguments were being made, or still are being made, with China, Yugoslavia, Vietnam, Albania, Nicaragua, and perhaps most pivotally, Cuba. All right, so that sets the stage for Venezuela from, again, a very high point in the sky. We see the country, we see it on the South American coast up there on the northern end of the South American continent. We know that it has a socialist government. We know that it's flush with oil and all the rest. And we know that even though it has a Spanish heritage from its colonial times, much like here in the United States we have an English heritage, they've been separated from that power for 150 years or more. So we have a little bit of a glimpse into the greater picture, and now we will dive even further in. Venezuela's move to socialism happened in 1999, after a politically tumultuous decade. In the 90s, their military attempted to seize control of the country on 3 different occasions, and many Venezuelans were, at the time, eager for reform, prosperity, and stability. Like any banana republic, the level of fluctuating instability the nation had been going through because of its singular economic tether to oil left a power vacuum for a massive political shift. 1999 is the year Venezuela's very own cult of personality, Hugo Chavez, came to power. And it's the year that the country entered a new age of the same old Venezuelan story, flip-flopping between feast and famine. The uniquely Venezuelan form of socialism, as propagated by the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, is, in English-speaking countries, called Chavism. Chavism was widely attractive because of its socially liberal attitudes, but it was even more attractive because it promised to spread the nation's wealth to its sprawling, woefully mistreated underclasses. It aimed to stabilize the economy, ensure higher employment, and create a more liquid economy. Diametrically opposed to neoliberalism, however, Chavez aimed for government control of massive portions of the economy. He wanted to create a gigantic cradle-to-grave entitlement system. He wanted government-down price controls instituted throughout the domestic market. And he wanted to pay for everything by slowly siphoning off his country's overwhelming supply of oil. That's good when oil prices are going up, of course, but when you find yourself in a commodity-obsessed socialist country and prices start going down, that singular reliance becomes deadly. In any case, Hugo Chavez ruled Venezuela from 1999 until he died in 2013. Because of oil's strong market performance during much of that time, particularly in the few years before the global recession began in 2008, the country actually started to see broad increases in quality of life indicators. Many left-wing leaders in the West wasted no time praising Chavez and calling his experiment a bona fide socialist success story, even as there were plenty of signs that supposedly free elections being held in Venezuela were fraudulent, that political opponents were being suppressed, and that private property was being seized. But the proof was in the pudding. Chavez was popular enough to retain power, and many Venezuelans truly loved him and appreciated what he did for the country, something that should have done more to guarantee the success of his successor, Nicolas Maduro. Maduro came to power in a close election following Chavez's death, and today he's widely disliked. As oil prices have fallen, so too have the fortunes of the Venezuelan people, to the point that the country is today on the brink of complete political and economic collapse. As the economy continues to melt down, and as the people continue to suffer more and more as a result, social unrest has increasingly become the norm, and Maduro's grip on power has become more tenuous and unsteady, which, as is often the case, makes him more dangerous than usual. So now we have kind of the political context of what happened. The rise of the socialists in 1999, Chavez ruling until 2013, Maduro coming up in 2013, quite unpopular, not the cult of personality that his predecessor was, does not have the love and adulation and adoration of society that his predecessor does. So there's problems there. Oil prices are falling. The socialist government is starting to crack. The leader that they all respected and liked is gone, and there's a lot of really bad kind of stuff happening around there as well, with crime, with the courts, with anything else under the sun, corruption. We're going to get into all of that next, because when you throw in all of that together, you have this maelstrom, this really, really terrible situation that Venezuela is going through today. And if you're curious for more context on those stories that you're reading every day about this, that, and the other thing, well, I think this next section is especially going to put things into focus for you. Today, Venezuelans can barely find food, nonetheless buy or otherwise acquire any. About a third of the country couldn't eat 3 meals a day even if it wanted to. Meanwhile, polling suggests that the government-controlled economy's inability to provide food to its people is causing the population at large to lose weight. 3/4 of Venezuelans have lost weight in the last year, and there are even reports of people outright dying of malnutrition in the country. This is something unheard of outside of the third world territory Venezuela once again finds itself occupying. Some are referring to the food situation as the Maduro diet. Rolling blackouts ensure that no one has reliable electricity, including the many government-seized businesses that people rely upon, and state-run hospitals that already lack even the most basic supplies needed to keep a sick person alive. Inflation has run amok, destroying people's ability to purchase goods and obliterating other people's savings. Inflation is currently hovering around 600% in the country, and predictions have that terrifying number going all the way up to the preposterous level of between 1,600 and 2,200% by the end of the year. While prices in Venezuela have gone up 800% this year alone so far, the economy has shrunk a devastating 18.6%. Imports to the country have fallen a catastrophic 50%. Combine that with Venezuela's lack of foreign currency with which to buy and trade for goods, the country's economy is in complete freefall and getting worse by the day. With what little foreign currency the country does have, it insists on paying down its national debt instead of securing supplies. The decline in oil prices leading to a self-destructing controlled economy has, in turn, led to political unrest and instability, as the people suffer more with each passing piece of news. Poverty, at times abject, is the new norm. Crime is completely out of control in Venezuela right now. 3 people are killed each hour there. And brief glimpses at whatever statistics the government still actually releases show a country that sounds more like a war zone than a functioning nation. People are held for ransom. Armed robberies are completely normal. The drug trade is burgeoning, and corruption is out of control at all levels of government. Society has become split between those who trust the government and those who don't. Those who love Chavez but hate Maduro, or hate both of them or love both of them. Those who blame the rich or the media or the elite, and those who are just desperate to get out of the country. Venezuelans are currently the top asylum seekers coming to the United States by volume. Parts of the military and government apparatus are wholly disloyal. When they act out, they are put down. Maduro is doing all he can to hold on to power and perhaps even his head at this point. Venezuela has a 3-branch government very similar to the United States, but it's starting to fall apart. When Maduro didn't like recent legislative elections, the Supreme Court briefly threw out all of the legislators and took legislative control for itself. When Maduro held an election of legislative replacements, the results were widely disputed outside of Venezuela. Maduro doesn't like the current constitution, so he stacked a legislative body with loyalists that will attempt to rewrite it for him. Maduro's military and secret police apparatus regularly jail political dissidents and opposition leaders. In recent months, more than 100 people have died in confrontations between the government and the people. Venezuela no longer enjoys any semblance of press freedom either, with reporters denied access or simply not allowed in the country at all. In short, Venezuela has turned into a rapidly failing socialist dictatorship. So I hope you enjoyed that brief little primer. I hope you learned something about Venezuela and the situation there. I learned a ton about Venezuela just researching it, and I'd love your feedback. So keep that feedback coming in the comments below. Keep it respectful to me and to others. We have a nice little community here brewing on CLS, as well as communities brewing on Reddit for Colin's Last Stand and on Facebook and other places around the internet. So go check those out if you can. And of course, remember that Colin's Last Stand is ad-free because of your support over there on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. For $1, $5, $10, whatever a month, you get special perks and you allow this independent ad-free venture to exist. And so I thank you for that from the very bottom of my heart. All right, that's it for me for now here on Colin's Last Stand. I appreciate your time once more. I thank you for being here with me. I hope you and yours are very well. I will see you next time. Keep on learning.